Joel Embiid remains sidelines.
Can't
We'll
win
talk about
without
that
him.
more. Nah, they can't.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. What's poppin', Mitch? How you been, bro?
Man, I've been I've been good, Keith, man. Holiday season. I know you out on the road, but I've been well, man. Watching these Sixers trying to get on track, minus the services of Joel Embiid.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been let's just say a little letdown. Like the first game, this road trip so far has been like a letdown because you want to see what Joel Embiid could do against these squads, especially these two teams. Like these two, like Miami and Orlando. They were the two teams that I really wanted to see Joel. First of all, I want to see Joel go up against Jimmy Butler, his nemesis. We know they don't guard each other, but
Right,
just
right,
wanted to see that matchup.
right.
And then you wanted to see them go up against those young, long, athletic Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
Who I watched them play the Washington Wizards last night here in a restaurant, and I like what I see. But
You,
for y'all, know
you join those folks at that evening practice, that the traveling evening practice that is the Washington Wizards.
hell yeah, they played that. They played that team open scrimmage, and the Wizards had some ugly uniforms on. Man, I'm talking about. Oh man, yeah, I don't like these alternative jerseys. I like back in the day when they just had straight jerseys. Like
Right,
the Sixers
right.
wore white at home and wore like red on the road. Like the Lakers. Like we talk about the Lakers real quick. So the Lakers had some of the best unis back in the day, right? So then all of a sudden they start getting that big L on the side with the other thing, looking like something out of
Yeah,
A1 mixtape. Like,
yeah,
what I mean? I didn't like that.
yeah.
So like when you got a fire jersey, don't mess it up with no alternative because ain't nobody wearing it. Like, I mean, if you want to have the alternative, what they can have is like, how like back in the day the Lakers had that powder blue, whatever it was when they
Yeah,
was in Minneapolis with
Minneapolis.
the, like that.
Yeah,
Rock that, but don't come with no crazy ugly black joints.
right,
I mean? Come on, man. Like
right.
they would wear it on Kobe Bryant's birthday and then leave it alone after that. Like,
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
That's
And,
what you got to do.
and black on Kobe's birthday might be a little morbid at this point, man. Listen.
But that was Black. What's it called? Black Mamba.
Black mom.
Black
Yeah,
Mamba. I mean, look, dude. I mean, people love him, man. They
yeah.
love him. He's one of them dudes. Black Mamba, like Black Mamba. But look, y'all, we ear beating a little bit. I'm Keith Pompey. That's my man, John Mitchell. Not to be confused with James Mitchell, but that's John Mitchell. And we're here to talk to you guys about Joel and the Sixers. And like, we're going to do a little bit about the previewing this game. But the main question I have, Mitch, is the Sixers right now are 0-4 without Embiid. Now, they did play well against the Boston Celtics in that one game. But the first two games, they got boat raced without him, right? We're
Yeah.
talking about the Minneapolis, Minnesota Timberwolves, and we're talking about the New Orleans Pelicans.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go to Boston. Everybody thought they were going to get beat down, right? And then they played well until Tobias messed up and saying, this past game, they've been struggling. I mean, they struggled mightily. Now, Maxey, believe it or not, Maxey had one great game. He played in 3 games. He had a good game where he shot and he scored 33 points. Now, a lot of it came in the second half. That team took the starters out. Maxey was baking them. They had to bring their starters back in, but he still had 33 points. But when you combine the 3 games that he played in, that without Joel Embiid, he is shooting 37.5% from the field. And he's shooting 4 for 28, I believe, from 3. Dude, the brother man needs to step up. And that's something that they got to work on.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I was reading your piece from practice, and that's what Nick Nurse wants those guys to do. He's talking about this as a learning experience, giving guys opportunities when Joel's not there. And if you look at the way he twisted his ankle versus Toronto, he might it looked bad. He might not be there for a minute, and I'm okay with that. But in the meantime and in between time, you really want to see Tyrese Maxey up his game, and you believe that he can. But this is a process, a part of the evolution of his game. When you have to be the lead guy, and you're kind of evaluating him and say, well, what if Joel is, God forbid, unavailable during the playoffs? Tyrese has to step his game up, and the guy who he's kind of really replacing. Remember, Harden did step his game up, and for one game at least in that Boston series, I think it was game 1 where he lit him up. 1 or 2 games he lit him up. But now is the time that you want to see. You want to see Tobias, who did come through for him, but you really want to see Maxey go out, and be in attack mode and not just throwing up baskets. And just looking like he's in a funk, it almost, I won't say he's regressed, but you just need to see him being more effective in these games, because you're going to have a number of games this season, probably 10 more, I'd say, knock on wood, without the services of Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I'm not going to say he regressed. Now, this is what I'm going to say about him. I think what it is it goes part of your maturation process, right? Mm-hmm. So let's be honest. When you play with Joel Embiid, he's 7'2", 280, right? He draws a lot of attention, right? So where it does is when you look at it, yeah, teams are scheming a little bit against Maxey, but you got to stop Joel Embiid, and then you got to do that. That's number one. That's priority number one. When Joel Embiid doesn't play, the whole defensive scheme changed. They start blitzing Maxey. They start doing all these different coverages, throwing different bodies at him, meaning like different guys, like he doesn't know who's going to guard him. They get physical with him. Right. And it's a whole lot easier to force him to go left.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So with that being said, it's tougher for him because it just tells you how hard it is to be the guy in the NBA.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? Like this stuff makes you appreciate these guys who can go in and night out, knowing that teams are going to throw bodies at them. They still going to get you 30. Exactly. They still going to usher to a high level. So I think that his maturation right now is nothing against him. He's just not quite there yet.
Right.
Like now he could play with him, and he can get his stuff just like he thrived with Joel Embiid and James Harden last year. But if you remember last year when he came off the bench and they had him in there with those all bench units, right? Mm-hmm. They took Embiid and Harden off the floor. He struggled. So right now he's benefiting a lot from playing with these two guys. And for him, he might want to, I ain't going to say might want to step up, but I think he's in need of a good game. Yeah. Because if we're talking about this now, and if he continues to struggle, the next thing you know, people are like, was it Joel Embiid or was it Tyrese Maxey?
Yeah. Well, I think whenever you play alongside a player like Joel Embiid, it's a super elite talent. It's going to create opportunities for you that you just typically wouldn't have. But then that also does go into question whether or not it's like, where are you? Because I think we see Maxey clearly heading in the right direction. But like you said, man, they take him, they force him left, they blitz him, They do all those things, and they say, okay, well, if we do this to you, who's going to step up for them now? Is Tobias going to step up? Is Kelly Oubre going to step up? Is Mo Bamba going to step up? But when you take the guy who, I mean, let's be honest, if we were to have an MVP award right now, thank God we don't do any of that stuff. 20 some odd games into the season, I dare say, even among league writers, guys who watch the team and travel with the team and have to be unbiased, would probably say Embiid is the leader. So
Definitely the leader.
Definitely the leader. So when you take
that's a mic drop, he's the leader.
Yeah. So when you take that, and when you look at how good guys are playing, continuing to play, continuing to play. When you take that out of the offense and the defense, you take his 2 block shots per game, you take his rim protection, you take all those things out of the game, and when somebody does have to step up, it makes their job doubly difficult. And that's what he's experiencing. But what he's experiencing right now, and I think, like you said, it's part of the process. If you're a fan of the team, you want to see his development right through here. And if he struggles, I wouldn't be furious. I'd be somewhat disappointed. But I think this is going to be a nice stretch for him, for us to see. This is a very big game for him in Orlando.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now, before we go, and the person, like we're going to break this stuff up, but I also we need to talk about the center position, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned Mo Bamba. I mean, we need to talk about the center position, and when we get back, we got to just talk about that. We got to get real gritty with it, not gritty with it, but get real with it.
Yeah.
To talk about Embiid, a lot of people saying, some people think the brother is faking. Some people think he just wanted to be at home with his family for Christmas. So that's something that we can address. And no one can really speak for Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's the one that has to speak about this. But this is something that we can address, where all this is coming from. All right? But I want to talk to y'all about eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit your roster, right? I'm going to go back with him, man. I'm going back with Dante Exum. Jason Kidd said that when healthy, the Mavs are still planning on starting Exum. His shooting will regress at times, but that role is enticing because, you know what, his shooting will regress, but they keep giving him opportunities to make shots and knock down shots, and he's done that for the most part when everybody focuses on Luka and some of their other players. So he'll be fine. So that's the guy that I'm going with, Dante Exum. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle, right? With over 122 million parts for your number one ride and die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motor has it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, look at these prices. You're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die. I couldn't even get up. Keep your ride alive. Right. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. So, Mitch, the thing is, when Embiid, let's face it, teams, for the most part, been attacking the rim. Now, when they went up against the Boston Celtics, I felt like that was their best performance without Embiid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Paul Reed got the start. Paul Reed was out there balling against Al Horford. Like, he was like, look, old head, this young boy could play.
Mm-hmm.
But then when he went up against Bam Adebayo the last game, he struggled.
Yeah.
I mean, and the struggle was he had 4 points. He had 2 rebounds. He only shot the ball 3 times. He was 2 for 3. But he struggled to stay out of foul trouble. He had 5 fouls total, 4 in the first half. He didn't even start the second half. Now, Mo Bamba came in and looked disinterested. He wasn't being physical at first, whatever his first stint. Got to a point they had to take him out because in 5 minutes he was a minus 12 that they had ended up going small ball. Then all of a sudden he comes back in, and my man looks like he did when he was in high school, just dogging everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he ended up with 18 points, a season high, on 7 for 8 shooting. He was 3 for 3 on threes, and he had 2 steals, right? So to me, when Nick Nurse is talking about, hey, this is an opportunity, we may have to switch some things individually. And then after practice, you look at Mo Bamba doing extra film study in the gym while other guys were getting up shots or leaving the gym. This might be a good game to start Mo Bamba. If you know what I mean? I would not be surprised if Mo Bamba gets the nod tonight.
Yeah, well, if he Bam is a hard guard for anybody, he's and for Paul Reed to struggle the way he did, and for Mo Bamba to come back out and to assert himself and to play the way he did, it's a good sign. Again, when Joel's out, man, in what world is Paul Reed a starter in the NBA? You know what I mean? And so when you have to elevate him to a starter, you're asking him to do things that you just typically wouldn't ask Paul Reed to do. I'm glad to see Mo Bamba come out and really play an assertive game because, in this very space, I've been advocating to see more of him just because, he does bring that length. He does bring that rim protection. And at the end of the day, he's really trying to salvage his career at this point, and to stay relevant as a legitimate rotation player in the NBA. And as you noted, the extra film study yesterday, on top of the fact that they have to like what they saw from him, and I think he played a season high 25 minutes. So they're probably going to turn to Mo Bamba, and they need to because again they're playing that long athletic Orlando squad, and ultimately the quest for a legitimate physically long center to play behind Joel has been ongoing for years. So let's see what he does. I hope he does get to start today. Because I think Paul Reed will be a part of the rotation, obviously, but I would like to see Mo Bamba to start finally, maybe looking like he did when he was at Westtown High School. You know what I mean, or just resembling something similar to that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree. I mean, the thing with Paul Reed, he said, nah, he was being himself. But when I went into the game pregame, I had a feeling he was going to struggle.
Really,
it was just he was either going to have a breakout game where he was going to give him 30 and 10 blocks. Well, he was going to struggle. He just didn't look himself.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I don't know, like sometimes people say locked in, but it seemed like he was putting too much pressure on him. But, I don't know, it just seemed different. Like it was like he wasn't being relaxed.
Yeah.
And in the game, he looked really, really anxious. And that's how he was getting fouls and doing things. And, he was trying to do too much. He was trying to be the man instead of being himself and playing this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how you get in trouble sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just relax and slow down and let everything come to you.
In other words, he was so locked in that he was locked out.
Yep, he locked himself out.
Yeah,
exactly.
He locked himself out.
Bingo, he locked himself out. He locked himself out. But look, let's talk about let's talk about Game Time right quick, right? You shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets to your next big events. Game Time is fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, right? See the view on your seats before you buy so you can know exactly what you expect to drive. And the thing about Game Time, y'all, I like Game Time because it's like a lot of times I go and I try to get tickets, but it's the last minute and I can't, and it really messes up. So it's one of those things where you have to go to Game Time and you go there and you just get it for dirt cheap. Don't even have to worry about it, right? Go to Game Time. Go to Game Time. Go to Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your next purchase.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
But look, y'all, now that we're back, Mitch, do you think Joel Embiid basically took the game off?
Nah.
To spend Christmas with his family at the crib?
Man, I have to laugh at that suggestion, man. I think I saw, Howard Eskin was floating that and actually literally questioning Joel's injury. And, if it were anybody else but Howard, because I mean, quite honestly, when Joel has become a target of Howard Eskin's, Joel could score 60 points and Howard would call him, talk about lack of leadership. And he wouldn't say anything positive about him. So I'd take that with a grain of salt. Any idiot who saw the way Embiid's ankle twisted, the way that 7'2", 280 pounds came down on his ankle as awkwardly as he did. No, and kudos to Joel Embiid for soldiering through that game, early in the Toronto game. But I just, it's just, come on, man. We all have questions about what Joel Embiid does in the playoffs, but I don't think, who wants to work on Christmas if you don't have to? But obviously, after seeing what happened in the Toronto game, you knew he wasn't working on Christmas. And I'm not surprised that he's not working against the Orlando Magic. I'm just not surprised by that. It just looked bad. So, that's clickbait, Twitter clickbait. That's kind of what that is to me.
I think what needs to happen in certain instances like that, I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency. Like if you do it, say, hey, look, Joel has a such and such grade sprained ankle, right?
Mm-hmm.
He'll be reevaluated in a couple weeks, right? Or whatever it is, give a time frame. Because when you just say he's not going to make this trip, and we just leave it at that, and then when you look at his history of in the past, when there were some big games against some big competition, Joel didn't play. And, I later found out that there was a couple of games he didn't go because he was coming off an injury and altitude and this and that and right?
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't play. But when you leave it to like he just ain't playing, then all of a sudden people are going to assume.
And that's on the organization. And that's on
they got to be more transparent. Now, the thing about it is, and Howard wouldn't be saying this, and who knows who his source is or what he had, or if it's, but he wouldn't say this if there wasn't a history of it.
Right.
Of missing. So it leads people because it leads people to think that. Now, from what I was told that Joel Embiid was upset and heartbroken that he couldn't play because he really wanted to play on Christmas Day.
Wow.
He wanted to put on a show,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted to, be with his teammates. He wanted to play against Jimmy and all that. So he was disappointed. Now, the crazy thing would have been is if, let's just say, if he showed up and he met the team in Orlando and everything was good, then people would be like, oh,
yeah,
maybe there is some truth to it. You know what I mean? So, but I get what you're saying. I do. And I'm not, and I like Howard. I like Howard. But I also think that this whole thing could have used a little bit more transparency. Like it just could have. Because and then another thing is, it also does, if we're going to be real, it does look bad when you're not with your team when you got injured players with the team. And I'm talking about Nick Batum. Now, again, that's why I'm saying, like, Nick was out there on the gym practice floor, sprinting, getting in some cardio workout, doing all those things that lead you to believe that he's, working his way to getting back. Now, he was ruled out, but he was out there doing the cardio. He was also there on the bench cheering on his teammates.
Right.
So, with that being said, how come Joel couldn't be there with his teammates?
Yeah, it's a perception thing. I think that also it's also a superstar thing. I think that one thing that it was like this when I was covering the NBA in the late 90s. Superstars get breaks. We were fully versed in the breaks that James Harden got from Daryl Morey when he was in Houston, in the liberties that he took. But I think if Howard's going to float that out there, I think what Howard needs to do is he needs to call the organization and not say that sources. Everybody's got sources, and I'm not questioning his sources. But do the 76er fan base a service and ask a journalistic question, Howard, and show up and say, hey, did he not want to ask that question?
Well, he normally does.
Yeah,
yeah, but I got you.
Yeah. So ask that question, and that can put it to bed. You know what I mean? That'll put it to bed.
Yeah, it will. It definitely will.
But if you float it out there and say, "Oh, he's not a leader," and it's like okay, you have to do a little bit of digging in the situation. Ask that question. If the Sixers are, if he and that's his story. So if the Sixers aren't being transparent, then he should follow up on that. That's his story.
Yeah. I mean. We'll see. We'll see how all that goes. But look, y'all, we want to thank y'all for joining us on Locked On 76ers. This podcast is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, right? So you can get it wherever you get your podcasts at, free and available. Also on our YouTube channel, Locked On 76ers YouTube. When you go there, click on the Liberty Bell. When you do that, you become a new subscriber, and you also get notifications when we have our next podcast. We'll be back tomorrow to break down this win or loss, whatever they have against the Magic. The Sixers don't have Joel Embiid. They don't have Nico Batum, but the Magic are coming back off of a game that they played last night against the Washington practice squad Wizards. Right? So I shouldn't say that.
Generals.
That's kind of hard, especially for a guy who covered the process. The process. So it's kind of hard to say that about the Wizards. But at the same time, you never know. These are young guys, young boys, but that played for the Orlando. But at the same time, they're coming off of back-to-back while the Sixers were well rested. So we'll see how that one goes. But
it's on Maxey.
Thank y'all.
It's a Maxey night.
It's on Maxey. It's a Maxey night. So we want to thank y'all for listening. We want y'all to have a blessed day. Peace.
Peace, y'all.